Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Victoria Skirbo from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. And today we're going to have another Conversations with Friends. It's been a while since I've done this. And my friend today is Gretchen. Hello, Gretchen.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Vicki. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, this is my pleasure. So Gretchen is an artist, correct, Gretchen?
Well, I'm an author,
Author.
a psychic, a medium. I download a lot. Now it's called channeling. When I started, it didn't really have a name.
Right.
And pretty much a mystic weirdo, I think.
Mystic, from one mystic weirdo to another. I get it. So Gretchen has a website called howspiritworks.com. And you also have a YouTube channel where you almost have, what did you say, 100?
Yeah,
No.
I'm at 95.
Well, I'm sure you'll get up to 100 after this. And your YouTube is How Spirit Works, DOTCOM, right? .com, but all out, all printed out. So if you're looking for her, I will put a link in the descriptor so they can connect with your YouTube and your website.
Thank you, darling.
So now this is kind of an unusual thing that you do. I mean, not to me, because I do unusual things, and a lot of the people who watch us do unusual things. But when did you realize that you were perhaps a little different than your average Gretchen?
Well, when I was, before I went to first grade, which there was no kindergarten, I mean, I'm from the Stone Age. I would have these experiences of such bliss, but I didn't know how to describe them. And what it was everything was starlight. You have those starlight moments when you're in. Now I know I was in my light body. My angels told me later everything was vibrating at the same frequency, and that was the experience I had when I was a child. But it only happened in nature.
I was going to ask you that question.
Oh, yeah.
So you grew up with nature around you, is that right?
Yes, and when I wasn't in nature, I was in making other worlds and closets. I was a really quiet, introspective, sensitive. It would have been better if I wasn't sensitive. I would have had a better childhood, I think. Um, but I kind of got a good start with all this right out of the box.
Right.
I knew my angels. I knew what color they were. They were around me when I was first born, and I was in and out of my body, and I remember that. And my birth angels were protecting me. I think otherwise I would be more strange than I really am.
Well, yes. I mean, not so much. And I don't know. I'm just, this is just in my head. This popped into my head. It's not strange, but when you have that much awareness of other realms, people just think you're crazy. And if you buy into that idea that you're crazy, that's I think when you can have a problem with that. So now let me ask you something. Did you have brothers and sisters growing up? I know we probably talked about this at one point, but I can't remember.
Well, that's so cute because that was the next thing that I wanted to talk about, and you and I actually connected mentally. And you asked me the question that I was ready to answer. I come from an incredibly scientific family. One brother is doctor of geophysics, one is doctor of astrophysics. My sister teaches computers, and I'm talking to dead people instead. That's what I meant by strange. In my family, I was very unusual, but I didn't really talk about that a lot with them because there was no context. They were all scientists, every one of them.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That was, and but it's interesting the science that they chose, right? Astrophysics is
Yeah.
as sort of metaphysical in a way that you can get and still be a scientist. So
And
that's
I was told that it's like a snake that comes back to its own tail,
right.
that the spirituality or the unseen realities and astrophysics come together at some point. They can't keep it apart,
Right.
you know.
Right. How do your siblings respond to the work you do now?
Well, the brother who's the doctor of astrophysics says that my spirituality is my way of coping with the difficulties of life.
Which is not untrue,
Right,
but it doesn't make it less real.
right. And
And
my sister and I are not close. I mean, we're from different planets, that just doesn't doesn't work. I mean,
right.
we pretend okay. We pretend we get along. The rest of my family is in spirit. So,
Do they talk to you a lot?
yeah, they hang out and talk, and it's really lovely now. I think we're having the best relationship we've ever
You've
had.
ever had. I actually had this conversation yesterday with somebody. Unfortunately, I can't remember the context of like who I was oh, I think it was my students that once people pass into spirit. Oh, I know what it was. One of my students' husband passed away, and she was, she loved him very much, and she did, so I asked her, how has that changed her? And she was saying that it allowed her to be more spiritual because he wasn't really into it. And I said, but I bet you now he is, because now once they go into spirit, they see the broader perspective, and they're no longer in their box. So they can interact, especially with somebody like yourself who's so otherworldly to begin with, right? It's probably actually much easier now than it was when they were alive to communicate. Would you say that was true?
Oh, absolutely. And our hearts are much more open. I mean, the heart energy is just flowing now. And it's also because my heart energy is more open
Right.
to them. So, um, and this is one of the things I wanted to talk with you about is how a lot of psychics become mediums because they're really two different things.
Yes. Yes.
And that's fine. Psychic is all the clairs, and medium is you really see. I mean, people are sitting on my couch, leaning up against my fridge. I know who they are. Sometimes they're in the back seat of the car to get my attention, and that's fine. I feel very protected, and I don't know. There must have been some good karma somewhere because I'm not haunted. I do get pranked every now and then by the deceased, and I know who they are because I was working with well, unfortunately, he self transitioned, and he was a brother of a good friend of mine, and it was nobody anticipated this. And the first time he was sitting next to me in the truck driving along. Okay, well, here's the thing. People in the world of spirit see everything about you. You can't hide anything. They'll come up with these little details like the doll my grandmother brought me from Spain when I was 5. I didn't even remember that doll, but they knew about it. Um, you have to have a really pure heart and not like I haven't made mistakes. I've made tons of mistakes in my life. But when you're with the deceased, anyway, he brought up something that I thought was fairly personal. And then his sister said, "Oh yeah, that's what he's like. He like zeros right, stick a knife right into you,"
Wow.
which he read from me. It's not like I told him. So, and he also wanted to know if I was good enough to work with his family.
Wow.
Anyway, he pranks me every now and then, but I know who it is.
It's funny. My husband just lost one of his foster brothers to COVID, actually.
Oh,
And he was actually younger than me. He was, I think he was a year younger than me. And I'm going to be 60 on my birthday in July. And he would have been 59 on his birthday in
uh-huh.
June. He was a Cancer. Oh, still is, I guess. And it's like very shortly thereafter, he came to me and he's like, "You thought you were gonna get rid of me, didn't you?" And he used to do this like little like annoying thing all the time. Like he'd like stand behind you and just, like I don't know how to explain he was like impish.
Yeah,
And I was like, Paul, shouldn't you be with your children and your wife? I think they need you right now. But he was just letting me know that, he hadn't really changed all that much when it came to that part of himself. But yeah, and then he came to me a second time and told me to apologize to his wife for being such an asshole to her.
mm,
And I wasn't really sure if I should have said it to her, but I
yeah.
did.
Mhm.
And I don't know I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I said, well, that's what I heard. She goes, that's really different thing to say. I said, well, that's what I heard. So that's what I told you. But I
Yeah, I
thought,
call that sticking my neck out. Yeah,
yeah, I don't like doing that. I don't really like doing that. Even when I'm doing readings, astrology readings and the like, I generally don't like people say, should I move? Should I do this? Should I do that? Sometimes you can see those things in the chart. Sometimes you can't. I don't like to tell people what to do. I'd rather tell them what the energy is like and have them make their own decision.
right.
Take no credit, take no blame on that, right? So, but I feel like people have to make their own ways to a certain extent. And I just try to give them the tools and the self-understanding that may help them do that. And I think I don't like telling people what to do mainly because I don't like to be told what to do
Yeah.
ever. It's like it's a Uranus thing. I can't help myself. But were
Well,
you?
I love to hang out in spirit because they're in general have a perspective that has been so helpful. And I was thinking about this last night, some of the things that I wanted to say. I work with a lot of accidental overdose deaths because I was on a recommendation through a place in Illinois. Anyway, I got the opportunity to work with a lot of accidental overdoses because a lot of these are not intentional.
Right,
And
right, the fentanyl and all that stuff
yeah,
that's happening now.
so
Yeah.
um, one of my friends, and I consider them friends in spirit. They are friends. They are my friends. I mean, we've opened our hearts to each other. Sometimes I get the opportunity to work with people several times, and then they're hanging around, and we have a great time. Anyway, and sometimes like I will tap some of my young friends on missing persons cases
Oh,
because it scares me to do
yeah,
that. It
yeah.
really does. So I really need to call in troops. Anyway, one of these little 16-year-old girls who passed quite accidentally said to me, when you look back on your life, you will realize that everything was perfect.
Yeah.
This is coming from a little girl who lost her life at 16.
Oh my God.
Another young woman said to me that her relationship with her mother, who was clearly devastated. I mean, obviously I can't even imagine living past some of these experiences, but she said, Mom, you and I made this agreement before I came in and that we're closer now. Had I stayed in the body, I would have had children, I would have moved away. I couldn't have been with you. And she's really advancing her mother tremendously. Um, so of course I love to hang out with the deceased. They're great. I never know who I'm talking to. Sometimes I'm talking to famous people because all I need to know is first name, year of death, and relationship. That's all I ask.
Right.
So I don't even know who I'm talking to until I find out maybe at the end of the reading, and then I go look them up. It's really fun.
Wow. Wow. Has Prince Philip come to you yet?
Now you know, who's helping me right now? And see, when I did this initially, I channeled from about 1982 to 1994 almost every week, every
Wow.
Sunday, and I have tremendous amount of material which I still draw from. The whole idea of self-realization, assimilation, which simply means transferring experience into knowledge, healing, which boy, we know what that's like here, and progression. Those four processes um, are both in life and in the afterlife. So um, I did write a book on where we can go and what we can do when we're in spirit. It was well received. I revised it in 2010. I'm going to do it as an audio. It was translated into French and German, so people liked it.
Wow.
Uh, anyway, where was I going with that? Oh, so then once I knew I could talk to dead people, it's like, okay, well, who would I like to talk to? So Buckminster Fuller, who
Oh,
invented the geodesic dome,
yes.
was at the top, right up there with Joseph Campbell. I really wanted to talk to Joseph Campbell. And he gave me a wonderful download on mystery, what it is, why it's a part of our experience here. He was very cool. Beryl Markham, who she wrote West with the Night, the first woman to fly across the Atlantic from west to east. And Krista McCullough, of course, because I'm in New Hampshire.
Right.
She figures very prominently in my book, but I wasn't saying the names back then
Right.
because names of famous people, you didn't do that back then. You just didn't. So I got to do downloads from all these really cool people that I admired, and I'm still doing that. You know who's helping me now?
Oh,
Louise Hay.
oh, of course. Right.
And I think we have very similar energy, but boy, oh boy, is she opinionated. Holy crap. So, she's so funny. You know, she loves to give her opinions.
That is funny. We
I,
should look at her chart someday and see why.
well, she has a Virgo sun sign.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Opinions are often Sagittarian, so it would be interesting to see her chart.
it would be. So
Yeah.
uh she's very outspoken about how I could be better.
In what respect? I'm just curious.
Well, she wasn't crazy about devoting a lot of life to a male partner.
Oh, okay.
And
Well,
I've had two challenging marriages. I'm in the second one, but our agreement is about spiritual advancement. And so it makes perfect sense. And I love my husband, but she thinks I spend way too much energy on him.
oh, that's so funny.
Yeah, she's a riot.
Did you happen to mention it to your husband that Louise is
Oh no.
he's gonna know now if he watches this, and you know he's gonna watch it.
But I had to intervene with stepson. I have children by my first marriage. And one of his deceased friends came to me and said, okay, you've got to like do an intervention, but it was an intervention about his work situation. It wasn't obviously about drugs or anything.
Right, 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 right,
Um,
right.
so I said to Jan, well, you know, your dead friend, I have to do this. I have to tell you what he said. Like,
How did he respond to that?
well, I actually helped him get out of the situation that he was in, and he's retooling. And it's been great. I knew he was having a nervous breakdown anyway.
Right.
I really did. Things were rough. And he just had been, he's a high level toy designer, but he said, all I'm doing is designing landfill. And it wasn't what he wanted to do. These junk toys using plastic
Okay.
and
Yep.
polluted. And this really became a crisis in his soul. And I said, well, you're gonna have to do something else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I understand that.
talking to
Go ahead, honey.
Yeah, he said he just couldn't do it anymore. Oh, my internet is a little unstable, so
I
you
know, that's okay. We'll just, when it gets that way, we'll just sort of be in the moment and wait for it to catch up. It happens.
and then a horse recently started me off on all this karma exploration.
A
Um,
horse?
we a horse, yeah, we've both my husband and I have been in horses all our life, or with them. And our very last horse was a rescue from a kill auction. So we at least kept him from being meat, but he did have some difficulties in his leg, and we had to euthanize him about a year ago. And then we weren't going to get any more horses. We can't take it. And I have rheumatoid arthritis. I've got all these physical hurdles too. But so Lewis is the horse, said to me that karma was patterns in energy. And my husband and I had had so much loss, grief, unresolved grief, sadness around our horses, that the horses could not create over our karmic patterns. So that got me started on, okay, patterns in energy. And then I remembered an old meditation I did that I didn't understand. And a lot of this I still don't understand. But they said that matter accumulates where there is continuous focus.
Yes.
So thoughts are things. That's how they become things. Thoughts really matter because they turn into matter.
Mhm.
And this has started me on this. What I loved about what Lewis did is he gave me a new question. I know once I get a really good question, I just run with it.
Right. Right.
And he sent us a hawk yesterday. Actually, my husband smoothed out where he was buried with some dirt. And when we euthanized him, 2 hawks came right over us and spiraled Lewis's spirit up into the sky.
Wow.
So
That's
I knew
amazing.
that the hawk was Lewis acknowledging that we were near his burial site on the farm. Anyway, yeah, so this whole karma thing has been quite interesting. And now I need to do another meditation on life review. Because when you're dealing with your own karma and your angels and guides and Louise are pointing out to you a laundry list of things that you need to work on. Some of them were things that I would have never guessed, like a dog I had in my first marriage that I owed apologies to because she was his dog. I wasn't very nice to. I mean, I wasn't mean.
Right.
I
Right.
fed her, exercised her, but I didn't connect with her soul. So, everything from little things to like huge misconceptions that you carry through your life and beliefs that become conscious. And that also karmic patterning. What did we get or not from that?
I heard the whole thing.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
It was a little wobbly, but it was heard. It was heard. So
And then how to dissolve these patterns has been very interesting.
now you do
So
also,
this
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead.
You
Go ahead.
also do art, correct?
No,
You don't?
I garden.
Oh, For some reason, I thought you did some art. Have you ever considered, maybe spirit is talking to me for you. Have you ever considered that?
Well, I write. Writing is like the hardest thing in the world to me. I mean, I think it is to everybody. I did start the second book on choices. See, choices is sort of my handle. Um, choices is how spirit works, basically. Choices, that's how life works. Choices are everything.
Right.
So my first book was Choices in the Afterlife. And then I wanted to do a book called Mastering Life Through Choice. And I got a good start on it. I got about 9 chapters written. I had an agent. And for some reason, that whole project was pulled, it was right before COVID. So that's when I started to do the YouTubes. I said, wow, this is a lot easier than writing.
Yes, it is. It certainly is. And people, well, and one of the other things I noticed, even for myself, I've been an avid reader my whole life, and I don't read that much anymore.
Right,
I get my information through video. And it's a, it's not always even a looking, it's a listening.
right.
And it's something about the listening that and not using my eyes somehow. Do you know what I mean? Like I watch the videos, but it's more about hearing the videos. I don't know if that's
I do that too. I'll just black out the screen, and especially at the end of the day, and just listen like a podcast. Yeah.
right, right. Yeah, I'm that could very well be the energy of Uranus right now is in Taurus. And on the tree of life, that path that gets activated through Taurus is the path of listening, clear audience.
Hmm.
And so so Uranus as the awakener energy awakens us by our ability to listen to the small still voice within,
Yes.
as opposed to seeing something, which is
I think
which is Aries energy.
what's really has been important for me though is to keep up with the daily practice, and it doesn't have to be super elaborate. Sometimes I just do, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, and well, that 4 sentiments of the Buddhist work. Um, I really like Buddhism because it includes all sentient beings. So many religions are so species centric. I
I
mean,
know. Yeah,
I'm
all this dominion stuff. Yeah.
right. So, um, and then do a little mantra, a little meditation, even if it's 5 minutes. It makes a huge difference to me.
Yeah, for myself, I find that being mindful of everything that I'm like, even in the morning when you're just like making coffee or you're doing those mundane tasks, to just do it in the presence of doing it, like focusing on that, like, oh, I'm making coffee, or my husband Michael, an avid gardener like you, but also a phenomenal chef, and cook. When he cooks, he puts his, like, that's one of the way he expresses his magic.
Mhm.
And you, when you eat his food, you can feel the presence in his food. And I think that is something that we all need to that's why things like multitasking doesn't really work. You can't be doing 2 things at once. You have to keep your focus on kind of what's in front of you and do the best job that you can. And that is kind of a Buddhist philosophy, isn't it? To just that sort of mindful walking through life kind of. I
Yeah,
don't know Buddhism, so you can correct me.
I'm kind of new to it, but I do like the ritual. Um, and I think the food that I grow, the food Michael grows, it is imbued with our love
That's right.
from our heart.
That's right. And then and then like there's a relationship. That's
Yeah,
why when you grow your own food, there's such a relationship to, like, nothing tastes better than a BLT made with a tomato from the garden. like,
Or just
or
the tomato, as your
I
mother.
know, not the beet, but I was having that conversation. Because one of my students is saying they love bacon, and I always loved bacon, but I don't eat it anymore because, pigs are so smart, and it's like a dog, like they're even smarter than dogs in some cases. And so I don't really eat bacon anymore, but in the summer I'm like, this is my, this is I'm backtracking here, but I have to have a BLT with
I think there's vegetarian bacon. I am a vegetarian and I don't even eat meat substitutes that much, but I think there is. I'd look around. So if you want to not have the vibration of the unhappy pig going into your body.
Right, I know. There's that too. There's that
Yeah.
too. And you see, you're a sensitive. And I think when you're a sensitive like that, those things matter.
Well, the heart energy is our source origin, God energy,
Yes.
and it informs everything. But no, us humans are up here in our mind, which is the species identity. And what sets us apart as a species is that we have the capacity both to create and destroy.
Right.
And this has to exist in universe. It has to. It's just a law of the universe, the polarity, the opposite. This is what makes the webs of the threads dance. There has to be this. So, oh boy, here we are.
Yeah.
And we have this choice. And this is the big choice. Are we going to heal? Are we going to be good to each other? Are we going to care about our planet? Are we going to care about the other species? Or are we just out of fear going to keep destroying things? And I'm not judging. It's
Right.
either love or fear.
That's right. That's right. It's funny. I did a video with Marianne from Revealing Light the other
I
night.
know. I love you guys together. You are so adorable.
Yeah, she's like my sister. I call her Marianne's down under, and I'm Vicky from Over and Above. In my head, that's what I say. Well, I never put it out there, but we were talking about actually Australia and the misogyny and different things that's so evident there, and the way they treat their indigenous, people, which of course we have it here too. I mean, certainly, and everywhere, right? And I was saying that to me, the indigenous are connected to that more earth-centered feminine energy that is on the rise now. And so it's trying to find that balance. And it's that balance between creation, because everything gets sort of created through the feminine energy, and the masculine impregnates, but it's more of there's this more like, to me, the masculine is very up and down. The energy is very up and down, whereas the feminine tends to spiral. We need both, but when one when one has all the power, we keep chopping ourselves up into smaller and smaller pieces.
Yeah.
And we lose the thing that holds us together. And of course, the thing that holds us together is love. And so the more we love, the more we strengthen that bond of cohesion, and we get into the flow of life. And there are times when things are going down, and then there are times when things are going up. And trying to withhold judgment from that, I think, is important, because it's just part of the cycle and the energy that we are in. I mean, the yin and the yang, right? Excuse me. I read.
One of the best one-liners
Go ahead.
that anybody ever said to me was, there are no,
You'll have to say that again.
there aren't any rules.
Right.
Okay, there are no rules. We are simply expressions of source origin God energy, having multiple expressions, moving the evolution of, because source origin consciousness cannot see itself. So it has to have manifestation in order to experience itself. So there
Right.
are no rules.
We are like the neurons of spirit. We are touching, we are part of the grand plan to both bring information down from there and bring information up.
Mhm.
Um, like how does the divine know itself but through us? And how do
Exactly.
we know ourselves but through the divine, right?
Exactly. And all of the beings, all of the rocks,
Yes.
all of the planets, all of the stars
Yeah.
have source consciousness and reflecting this source consciousness back to itself. We're just there's no morality, and I know that's a hard thing to accept. Is that right now with the Floyd Chauvin thing, I have to wonder what happened to Chauvin when he was a child to make him like that.
It's interesting. My astrology class, we did a class on him and on that whole situation.
Mhm.
And it was very telling because the way the planets lined up and everything, there was this sense that these two guys on a higher spiritual level
Yes,
agreed to do this.
there was an agreement to move move this into people's hearts.
Right.
So, all this, oh, I hope he goes to jail. I hope he gets no. This was an agreement between the two of them.
Right.
I mean, I feel that very strongly. I mean, there are no rules. Why do we moralize everything? Why do we judge everything? And that's been a big lesson in my personal healing.
Well, I think judgment is a mind thing, and the mind, like what was his name? Eddie Murphy used to say on Saturday Night Live. I don't know if you remember this. The mind is a terrible thing. The mind is a terrible thing, and it is in a way because the mind separates. The mind judges. The heart is open to forgiveness and compassion and so I think that it is true. There are no, I understand what you're saying. I think for the evolution, however, to occur, he has to be held responsible because there is a certain amount of, and part of that is that the agreement was, right? I'm just supposing the agreement
Right.
was, and they knew each other before this. So
Yes,
this wasn't their first interaction with each other.
yes,
And it was indicated in their charts that there was a past connection and perhaps a past life connection.
yes.
These are things that we don't naturally have access to. Like you're not going to see this on CNN. You're not
No.
going to see it on Fox or your local news station. You may hear it like on a YouTube channel that we talk about this stuff, but there still has to be he still has to, I think for people to understand it or to somehow like they wouldn't have bothered to do, I think they wouldn't bother to agree with it if it wasn't something that had to be agreed upon and something to move us forward with our evolution,
Yes.
but we're looking at things, most people, not you and I necessarily, but most people are looking at things from a very, very small aperture of experience. They don't see the big picture. And when you're talking to dead people all the time and
Right.
flying in among the stars, it's a lot easier to see the connections and then not hold judgment for them. Not
Yeah,
hold judgment.
you get a very different perspective. Um, if I can share something very, very personal, when I was just 18, I had an abortion, and I have for half a century felt such shame,
Yep.
such sorrow, such grief, and that is why I am so driven to help other people who have lost children. because even though the circumstances, and I'm not blaming anybody for this, and what I've been told now is this child and myself made an agreement because my life went in a completely different geographical, I mean, literally from that moment, because of that event, which was devastating for any woman who's ever had an
Yes,
abortion. It is devastating.
it is.
And
It's a terrible choice to have to make, and it changes your life forever.
yep. But now I understand that, and it was a girl that she and I made this agreement because I had to be moved. I couldn't stay where I was. And I still have trouble forgiving myself. I mean, I'm working on it, but this has all come out of this karma work. But I've spent 51 years hiding, being ashamed, being in deep sorrow. And that was a misconception from my human mind, physical earth point of view. And I don't have to feel bad about this
No,
anymore.
no, no. Again, this is one of those feeling, for me, it feels like you make an agreement with the soul. You will be part of me, and then but you will not come to term. And the soul says yes, and this will, you know, many women that I know that have had, and you'd be surprised at how many women have had to make that choice. That choice changed their lives in a lot of ways,
Yes.
but most everyone that I've spoken to, uh, have suffered through it. It's not just oh well,
Tremendously,
I'm
tremendous.
preggers, I'm just going to get an abortion and
Yeah.
then I can get on with my life. I have never met a woman who's had an abortion. We talked about that, where that's been their experience. It's always, and if it is, and if that is true, and maybe it's people I talk to, um, they just weren't at the level where they were, you know what I mean? Like, we're all at different levels.
Oh, yeah. And we want to keep the door closed on those things that we're really ashamed of. We don't want to look at those. And that's what this horse Lewis started, this whole karma. And and so then I started to look at my life in a completely different way. Okay, what patterns am I carrying? And I do believe that, okay, I did a reading for the man who translated my book into German for his mother. And his name is Gert. I don't think he'd mind me using his name. I said, your dad is only talking about your sister, your sister, your sister. I sure hope the hell you have a sister. You've never mentioned a sister to me.
Right.
What is this? I saw her hair. I saw how old she was, how she was dressed, her relationship with her parents. Well, as it turned out, Gert was never told he had a sister. And the sister died at childbirth.
Oh,
But his sister decided in spirit, and we can do this. A lot of my young people continue to have their life path in the world of spirit as if they were alive.
right.
And that's what his sister did. And his mother was completely blown away because nobody knew about that.
Wow. Yeah.
Nobody knew about that.
Yeah. And I
Not
think,
even
and,
her
and I think
brother.
that's something that a lot of people don't understand, that in these situations, when the person either doesn't come into life for whatever reason, or they have a life in another dimensional space.
And
They're
I
living,
felt,
they're continuing on their journey. And there's it's almost like there's these nodal position, like little nodes where you come together. And sometimes you stay together, like in the case of the people in your life now, right? And then other times it's like boop. And it's just I think it needs to be understood in that larger context, because we spend so much time feeling bad about the things that we don't really need to feel bad about. But a lot of that is the moralism, the moralistic stuff,
Mhm.
you know, and all of
Oh,
that.
we
So
we judge ourselves so harshly.
yeah,
We really do.
yeah. And then yet we hear, judge not lest you be judged,
Right.
right? So, but you know, a lot of that is Judeo-Christian, you know, judgmental, you know, God throwing thunderbolts down at the sinful and all that stuff. But
So
that's
one of my videos is called "Be Cause and Effect," and this was a automatic writing download that I got about not blaming. That when you look at things that you're not proud of in your life, you know, you don't blame somebody else. You created this pattern. It is yours to, and I know all this bleeds into moral, but it really isn't. These are energetic patterns. We don't want to die with these things, you
right,
know, because they kind of hamstring you in your transition. They take away our joy in life. Um, so, you know, best to clean up our act while we're still alive, get a jump start on it. But I have to do a meditation on life review now because basically that's what this has been for me is a life review. And I'm being helped with healing these patterns because I take full responsibility for them.
right, right. And that's really, I think that's really the thing, taking responsibility for yourself, um, and your choices, and then being at peace with those things. So it's like it's a little bit of a tightrope because you're taking responsibility, but you're not judging.
Right. And I'm not even judging myself anymore. And that's why I can speak of this. I mean,
Right.
this is huge, Vicky. No one knows about this. Not my family. Well, they might. If but they won't go to my YouTube.
Well, you know, sometimes it doesn't, you know, who has to hear what you have to say? Well, they'll hear it. And the right, you know what I mean? I'm a firm believer in, you know, saying what's coming out of your heart. You know, it's hard sometimes, it's a little scary to not what's there's a word, what is it called? Where you hold yourself back. I can't think. Edit
Well,
yourself. It's hard not to edit yourself
yeah, and for me,
because
I had this incredible connection to God and love and spirit, and yet I thought I was a piece of crap for most of
wow,
my life because of that one
that one thing, yeah,
thing. And so there are other ways to consider, and we'll know this all when we're dead. It all gets sorted out.
right, right.
It
And
all
if
gets
you come to terms with it in this lifetime, you don't have to repeat that lesson, I believe. I think you're like, oh, okay, did that, next. I know, like, I know your chart, so your north node in your chart, which is your direction of your destiny, is in Pisces. And Pisces is about forgiveness. And I'm teaching a Kabbalah class right now, and we're doing the numerology part of it. And as you know, when you're doing a class, you have to do your research. You know, like I know the stuff, but then you have to like write it down, and you have to make it a presentation, so things come back to you because you write, you know, that you're creating it. And the last lesson of humanity is forgiveness. And so that is, and it's the nine vibration, and
yes.
there's only nine numbers, so that's it, the end. Nine, the end and a new beginning with an understanding. And so forgiveness is really important. And I find the most unforgiving people are the people who judge themselves most harshly. And so if
Yes.
somebody is doing that to you, you can bet that they're doing it 100 times worse to themselves. And when you can get to the point where you release that and realize that on some level everything serves, um, then you can release yourself from the tethers You know, what is that? The ties that bind and strangle or something. It's like an expression.
Well, my angels have told me that I had to go through all this so that I could bring, they said that my teaching isn't in my contract, bringing the information in. And even for one person to go, and I'm not saying I'm special, everybody's special,
That's okay. You're special. I think you're
but
special.
for one, I'm strange. No, for one person, for me to run with this, and in spite of the difficulties, the illness, the everything that has been thrown at me, to keep abiding in love, to keep abiding in spirit, to keep listening to my angels, to keep up with my practice, to um and now I'm starting to teach. So, but they said the teaching wasn't part of my contract. Basically, to bring this information here so it lives here in our collective as a contract.
Right.
And I had to go through all these really horrible human experiences to and you know, if they throw something else at me, I'll have to go through that too.
Well, you know, it's interesting because rheumatoid arthritis to me, and Louise Hay may agree or not agree, is is self-judgment. Like arthritis is self-judgment.
It's self-rejection to me. It was rejecting my body based on rejecting my daughter. See, there's a real connection there.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, there's all this disease. You know, people talk about it being genetic and stuff. A lot of that genetic stuff is simply those patterns, those
Oh yeah,
energetic patterns, because
oh yeah,
DNA can express itself. It depends on the way the light hits it. And
yes.
so it doesn't have to manifest itself in the sort of genetic predisposition of my mother had it. My mother was mentally ill. My grandmother was mentally, my father was mentally, so I'm going to be mentally ill. No, it doesn't have to be that way. You can heal that. And the other thing about healing the self is as you heal yourself, you heal everyone in your line.
Stop stealing my lines.
Sorry. Well, we have an understanding. You know, we're on that wavelength.
Oh
And,
yeah.
you know, that's been my experience. You know, that's been my experience and what many of my teachers. I did a past life regression workshop with an astrologer, Patricia Walsh, who, if anybody has an opportunity, she does deep memory process work, amazing stuff. But she talks about, you know, healing the family line, doing that ancestral work, and it just and then and so you're, it's like you're freeing, it's like you're um I one of the things that's happening now is that we're coming out of more density, we're all becoming more light filled,
Mhm.
and in order to do that we need to uh heal and forgive, and on a certain level we don't even have to forgive, we have to be, because forgiveness assumes that somebody's right and somebody's wrong, and that's not true. That's not true. So it's about just being and loving to a certain extent.
And
And
I think some of us do volunteer to come here to clean up the family karma, so to
oh, sir,
speak.
for sure. That's actually in astrology, yode's in a chart, which I don't believe you have a yod. I do. Couple is a way of breaking the pattern of a family,
Yes.
and I was born, I'm adopted, so I was able
Which
to,
is fascinating.
yes.
I mean, that's a fascinating choice,
The other interesting thing is that
right?
my teacher Patricia is also adopted. So there's something about being adopted, and there's a lot of people out there that it's like it's like you're farmed out to another family, which sounds awful, but it's not. Because that's the only place you can break the pattern. Like I needed to be in the family that raised me in order to break the pattern of the family that I originated from, as it were. And I know my mother, but I don't know who my father is. So I don't know what that karma is about yet. Maybe perhaps someday I'll know. Or maybe I don't have to know. I just
I
have to
don't
know
think you have to, stay in love and light, and it's gonna heal. It's gonna heal.
all of it.
Yeah.
That's right. Shine your light and tell your story. Every story matters. Every
And
story
figure out
matters.
who you were when you came in. That's another lesson of mine. Remember who you were right before you were born, because you are not your story.
That's right.
And we get back to that with a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Maybe not even completely because of the density of our physical body. But again, the karma, this is not a moral judgment. They're simply energy forms. They're simply forms in energy.
Yeah.
So you've got, what we think of as positive forms in energy, and then we've got some of the murkier, cloudier forms in our energy field.
Right. Well, one of the things that I always say is the more light, like if you're out in the sun, right? And it's noon and it's bright, your shadow is very dark, but
Yeah.
it's small, but it's very close to you.
Yes.
So the brighter the light, the closer and darker the shadow. And that's something that we have to, so and we're dual in our nature as we come into this world. So we need the darkness to as contrast to the light. Otherwise, there would be no you there'd be it would just all be light, right? So we need that.
Well, we carry both.
Right.
That's the human species choice, is to carry both. That's
Well, it's the nature of the reality that we've come into. It's the nature of the universe is that duality, and part of that duality is God wanting to know himself or herself or itself, the
Mhm,
divine to know the divine.
mhm.
And so in order to do that, you need a mirror. And in a lot of ways, we're the mirror. We're both the mirror and the reflection and the darkness and the light. We're all of it.
Well,
And
one of my things about getting away from this morality, because even in the Buddhist philosophy, there there are metaphors that I don't agree with, like who am I? Duh, these are the Tibetan Buddhists. They're the best thinkers we have on the planet. But where was I going with that? What were you saying? Light, dark, light, dark, dark. Yikes. Um,
you don't agree with the Buddhists on something.
no, the whole getting away from morality, the whole getting away from considering even the human species conscious mission here, and everywhere humans exist in universe, it's the same. We chose this. We chose to work in this species, to have the ability to destroy and the ability to create.
We,
But that's not what I was thinking of. Yeah, how to get away from judging, how to get away from the morals. You talk and maybe it'll come back.
oh goodness gracious! Now I'm on the spot. Um,
I'll talk about anything. But there is a really good way of not looking at even your shadow and light is in a moralistic sense. And they're not help guys. Help.
well, I think there's the moralism, the moral to the story. The moralism is again that judgment piece, and it's really about being in the experience of it. We came in. Humanity has free will, and my understanding of free will is we can choose the path that we are on, or we'd say no, I'm not doing that this time. And so that's the free will. You're either going to be aligned with what you've come to do or you're not. And when you don't, then the body gets, then the soul no longer needs to inhabit the body because you're not doing the soul's work. And then you get another time, the chance. That's sort of the wheel of, keep coming back to learn the lessons that we do. But so I mean that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that has anything to do. I sort of lost my train of thought. I'm feeling very spacey. Are you feeling like very spacey right
Yeah,
now?
I really am too. I
I'm
really
feeling like there's something's happening, right? So to both of us. So
yeah, because usually I can carry a thought for more than a minute.
yeah, no, what's interesting because I've had these recently more than, I mean, we all have our moments, right? But it seems like I go along and all of a sudden I feel like right now I feel like my third eye is like enormous, but there's no information necessarily coming through. It just feels like energy. So is that an excuse that I don't know what I said before, but that's what it feels like. Sometimes it feels like my head is so full of lights that it doesn't come out my mouth. So I don't know if that's what you're feeling, but I feel
I
like my
think
third
that's a
eye is.
Pisces thing.
Well, yes, most likely. Yeah, well, we do have that Pisces connection now, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
And a Virgo connection. I have my Virgo too.
Yes,
In fact, I think my Virgo's right on your South Node. So we've known each other before. We've been healers together before, as
yes.
it were.
When Louise Hayes, when I first got You Can Heal Your Life, my only mantra was, I am willing to do my work. I'm willing to do my work. I'm willing to do my work. And I repeated that for in my late 20s, and then in my early 30s, stuff happened.
Yeah.
I just was able to do these downloads.
There you go. So you were priming the pump, and then
Yeah.
the water got turned on.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Gretchen, this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I would speak to you longer, but I have another Zoom with one of my oldest and dearest friends, who you kind of remind me of, actually.
Aw,
Yeah. So,
aw.
um, so this has been a real pleasure. We could do this again another time. We could
That'd be
even,
lots of
we
fun.
could even, it doesn't necessarily have to be a conversation with friends. We could do something together. You do your thing, I can do my end of things, kind of like I do with Marianne. I think that would be fun. But we can discuss it off air, as it were. That
Yeah,
sounds.
I'm a little afraid of doing live.
Oh, I don't do live. No, I can't figure out the technology to get it. I would do it if I knew how. But then, when I watch people do live and they're like, I don't see anybody. Is anybody on? I'm like, oh, frig that. I
Right.
almost said the other word.
That's no.
Yeah, it's too much technology for me. I like to relax into my work, and this is relaxing, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but again, thank you so much. And for those of you who have been listening but didn't maybe hear it in the beginning, Gretchen's website is howspiritworks.com, and her channel on YouTube, which you can check out. I am going to check it out as well, is How Spirit Works, DOTCOM.com, all one word, all spelled out. Yes.
Yep. Yep. It
All
doesn't
right.
have to be one word. You'll find it if the words are separate.
Oh,
It's
well,
I have an old YouTube channel from pre-Google, and you cannot get rid of those things.
oh goodness. I hope you
It's
liked
from
what you said on it.
it's from 11 years ago. And
Wow.
so I had to make my new channel have a different name, because you don't want to see 11 years ago. I mean, I don't want to see 11
Well,
years
I
ago.
might want to see 11 years ago. I like that. Well, I like digging. I'm like a detective. Watching the detectives. That's me.
Well, so I helped plant peas today. Um, get my peas in today. Does Michael have your peas in yet?
Not yet, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't gotten into the garden yet. We're working on a little, we have some drainage issues
Yeah.
because of all the rain. Like, have you noticed? It doesn't just rain anymore. It's like everything's a downpour. Like, you don't get these like days of like sweet, gentle rain. Everything just dumps. And we have a lot of hardscape that we put down, but we did it ourselves.
Right.
So now we're sort of tweaking the, so he's been doing a little like of the unfun moving rocks kind of thing.
Engineering. And
Yeah,
it
yeah,
does your mom. I think about her and I wish her loads of wonderful energy and did you see there was a hospice nurse medium that Intuit, Kim at Intuit spoke to? And she said, when you see your mother's brothers and the family all dressed up, ready for the party, that means your mom is closer
that's right.
to
Oh,
leaving.
yeah, we've had the whole family. We live in a very old house, with, there's water underneath the house. There's like just like underground water and stuff.
Mm.
And we have a fieldstone foundation, so there's a lot of courts. So it's a very active house, we'll say, right? And a couple of weeks ago, I felt like the whole house was like, it was like, when people have a funeral and everybody comes
Yep.
and they're celebrating the life of the person. Well, her whole family was there. My whole family, her whole family. And I'm like, she's like, no, 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 no. And I'll hear her arguing with them. Nope,
Yeah.
nope, I'm not going. Nope, nope. She's stubborn. But when it's time, she will go. And they'll be, and it'll be, my mother is a Leo. She's got 4 planets in Leo.
Oh, wow.
And it has to be a dramatic entrance.
Yes.
So she's working on the drama, I think. But yeah, she seems to be softening up a little bit. She's a lot less angry now. And I think she's sort of moving into that place. And
Well,
of course,
Leos love an audience, as you know, but now her audience are in spirit.
yeah, they're mostly over there. It's only me and Michael. And of course, we do a lot of healing work on her. We do a lot of his receivings work because
I
for
know,
us,
I'm fascinated by that. I am fascinated and I would love to work with him, but I'm really doing this whole karma thing first. And then I can go back to addressing physicality.
yeah, well, it heals everything. So it's not just physical healing.
I know, I'm fascinated with
Yeah,
what he's
yeah.
doing.
Well, you guys will connect.
Yeah,
We'll get
I
you
know
to
we will.
connect. All right, honey.
Okay, darling, I'll let you go.
All right. Much love.
So much fun.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.